Hey everybody, Breakfast with Bob, Boston Marathon Edition. My name is Bob Babbitt, presented and hosted by Hyland. Stop your cramp, not your race. By Polar. Check out the Polar Vantage M and the Marathon Edition. And UCAN. Perform, workout, energize. My next guest, a legend of running, Mr. Runner's World for so many years, the creator of the Yasso 800s, Mr. Bart Yasso.
Hey, Bob. How are you, buddy?
I am spectacular. How you doing?
Doing all right. We're in the right place. We're in Boston on the Boston Marathon weekend, so we're in the right place right now.
Last year, I'm going, wait, well, you're not coming? Was last year the first year you've missed in how many years?
Last year, I missed coming to the Boston Marathon. First weekend I missed in 37 years.
Oh, my God.
I broke my streak.
How hard was that?
You know, it wasn't that hard. It's got to happen one at a time. So, I retired from Runner's World, and I really didn't have any official things to do. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to just stay home and see what it feels like.
Stuff.
Yeah, do other stuff. But it was interesting. And I watched it on TV when I was at home. But it's good to be back. I just rolled into town today. And
you're dealing with some flight delays and all bit.
Oh, yeah.
So what, for somebody who was at Runner's World for so long, this was sort of the iconic race. Boston is just so special.
Yeah, it was the flagship of everything for us.
Right.
Yeah, there was nothing like it. I mean, it was the best weekend in running of the year. And nothing against Chicago Marathon, New York City Marathon, London Marathon.
It's got the
they're
history.
all great races, but that's what it is, the history and, and what people sacrifice to get here and how much of a commitment running is to them. And
the qualification and all of that.
And all that.
It means so much.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's how it was for me a long time ago,
How many times did you run this thing?
I ran a lot in the 80s. So I remember first year I did it was the Duel in the Sun, 1982.
Oh, my God, Beardsley and Alberta.
I'll never forget cruising along, and back in the day, people had transistor radios held to their ear. And, they're listening to the call of the race on a transistor radio, and, of course, we're out there running, and people used to make a sign and say who won and put the winning time down. And I remember running along. I was at mile 21, and I saw Dick Beardsley, 2:08:51, and then, Alberto Salazar, 2:08:51, first place. Dick Beardsley, second place, 2:08:53. I'm like, they got the numbers wrong. I can't run that fast. At that time, there was never a race where two runners went under 2:09, and ever. And it was a warm day, and the sun was intense that day, and those guys ran like unbelievable races. Beardsley and Salazar, like a duel like you've never seen in running. They put it out there, both of them.
And you know what? And when because so many times these are sort of time trial type of races. Somebody gets off the front, and then they're spread out. But if you look at Ironman.
Right.
With Mark Allen and Dave Scott. Those are the races you remember.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
when you got those battles.
Yeah. I remember that Duel in the Sun, and I was out there way behind those guys. And I just remember seeing that sign thinking, wow, these guys. And then I realized it was real because I saw it again and again. And I said, wow, these guys are amazing. I got to keep doing this race. And I kept doing it. And then I got my job at Runner's World.
And once you're working there, you can't
you
run it anymore.
Weekend, you wake up Monday morning, you're happy to roll out of bed.
Yeah,
forget
there's no
about
way
running
you can
a marathon.
do that.
But it's, but you know what? I wouldn't trade anything.
No,
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
You built up such a following over the years, just because these are parties, and you like being at parties every single weekend, right? Nobody is coming here because they don't want to be here.
No,
everybody is here, paying their own way, paying for everything, and loving being part of something so special.
Oh yeah,
and. At Runner's World and me, a competitor, we got to do that every weekend.
Oh, yeah. We did get to do it every weekend.
There was nothing better.
Yeah. I loved my job. People ask me why I retired because they knew I loved my job and they knew I loved what I did for a living.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of health problems and I really needed to stop traveling. And traveling is so hard on your body,
it
as
really
you know.
is.
It wears you out. And I was on the road for 31 years.
And how many days a year were you traveling?
It got more intense later at my time at Runner's World. But, in the heyday, I was probably, 150 nights in a hotel and 45 trips a year. I flew somewhere, and then there was, if I went to something in D.C. or New York, I would, I could take I wouldn't fly there because it was so close to our office. So I did a lot of trips. I mean, it was endless. And then did a lot of races too back in my younger days. So, I mean, it was fun though. I would if I always say, oh, if you went back, what would you change?
Nothing.
That part of my life wouldn't change a thing. I mean, just the way it organically happened and what happened, I wouldn't change a thing. It was magical.
And you were meeting people and people from different. What you find is running is a universal language. It doesn't matter what language they speak
that
you
is
speak.
So true.
There was a language of running and of what you guys do and why you do it that you didn't have to talk.
Yeah. And that's, coming to Boston, there were just so many stories at this race. People that sacrificed so much to qualify, and just stuff like, where the Hoyt thing, which is such a popular thing, that started here. Dick and Ricky Hoyt.
Pushing his son.
Bob Hall.
What would a father do for son?
Bob Hall started wheelchair racing. Started here.
Jim Knab. All those guys.
The stuff starts here, and then it goes global from here, but it starts here. And that's what makes this race so special. It's not the greatest course. It's not, not the greatest time of year to run a race, to be honest, but it has the greatest history. And, the way this community embraces this race, not just the city of Boston, the outlying areas too. I mean, you walk around here and tell people you're running the Boston Marathon. You are the Michael Jordan to them at the moment. And it's pretty cool. And that goes, people, I just love to see these faces of first timers. They just can't believe how everyone is excited to see them go out there and run. And
so when you look at the over the years, you had all the Kenyan runners, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you had the opportunity to go, to go over to Kenya.
Yeah.
Because during the Runner's World, during your era, that's when the whole Kenyan, Ethiopian, all those runners were becoming the best on the planet.
Yeah, and so that's when Runner's World became a global product, too.
Exactly,
We started going international and eventually opened up 19 international offices. So,
because when you started, they weren't international.
No, we were
local.
Local. Yeah, we were, what we would call a domestic magazine, not on a global scale. But then we went global with print, and then, of course, digital is global easy. But we went global with print early on, which was pretty cool. Because
those were the best.
Yeah.
And people wanted to know what the best were doing.
Yeah.
And so you were over there.
Well, Amby Burfoot and George Hirsch were brilliant minds at the helm of Runner's World.
Right.
And they knew what they were doing, and that really fueled a lot of the things we did back then. They were just still are brilliant people.
Right.
But they were really, George being the publisher, Amby being the editor-in-chief, they were just incredible leaders.
At the same time, when you're traveling to places like Kenya and Ethiopia, it becomes more than running. You're seeing cultures, and you're seeing sometimes poverty, and you're seeing the sport of running
South Africa,
is immersing you in a world that maybe you didn't even know existed.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I've done races in India, 100-mile race in India. I've seen it all. Antarctica, the Arctic Circle. I mean, I literally went all over
through this crazy sport of putting one foot in front of the other.
You got it, yeah. But I always was preaching running as a way to change your life, a way to enhance your life, a way to help your life, and a way to make change culturally. A way to make change.
Because you weren't that guy, even though you were the Yasso 800 guy. The performance side was great. But you were the humanitarian side. You were the guy looking at, hey, we're all people doing this crazy sport. Let's be buddies. Let's learn from each other. Yeah. Tell me about your customs. I'll tell you about mine.
Right. That's what it's all about. And running is, as you said, a universal language. I mean, you bond right away. We share that commonality, and then somehow we end up being friends, and it's amazing to me. I don't know any other sport. The endurance athlete world is a cool place to be, and it's a very special place. I feel lucky that I found it.
Well, you were also one of the guys who embraced not just running, but you rode your bike across the country.
Yeah,
you did
twice.
Ironman.
Yeah, I did
right?
Ironman. Yeah.
And back in the day, runners would look at triathletes and go, okay, there's somebody who's sort of good at three things, right? Because they can't really be good at one. They can't be good at running, so they'll do triathlon. But you knew early on these guys were good.
They were good, yeah. And it may have been in the very beginning of triathletes. That may have been the case because someone wasn't that good a runner, and they said, I'm going to do this thing where you do all three. I'm a little bit better at that. But the
when you Dave Scott,
today,
Mark Allen guys come in,
they are supreme athletes of anything. If they would have focused on running, if they would have focused on cycling, if they would have focused on swimming, they would have been at the highest level. But they focused on triathlon, which was a cool thing. And
it really was.
Well, as yourself, to see that growth, that we witnessed that sport come to life and take off.
Basically in our lifetime.
Right.
In 74 it started, in 78 first Ironman, and by 2000 it was the Olympics.
Yeah.
We watched a sport start from nothing and get to the Olympic Games in 20, a little over 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I speak at these dinners, like a dinner I'll speak at tonight, there will be, people, the first question I'm going to get is, what is your first Boston? And, of course, my first Boston was 37 years ago.
Right.
Or 38 years ago. And, the room's going to be filled, half people weren't even born at that time. Right. So it's really, to see them light up when they realize, but they're here now. And I was telling them, this is the time to be in running. The way the sport has grown and the level it's at right now, and the gender 50-50, this is the time to be in our sport. I'm glad I was around in the 70s and 80s, but it was a much different sport. To be around now, my message to these people, how lucky they are to have this.
Absolutely.
And I always get people say, they're nervous, or, training wasn't perft. I got slight hamstring pull, or
it's a catered workout,
neuroma in my foot, or something I got to tweak a little bit. I got one line for them all the time. I said, look, there are 35,000 runners in this race on Monday. Do you know how many runners want to be in this race on Monday? How about 5 million? Seriously.
So, yeah.
If this was
smile, enjoy every second of it.
If you have a bib number for this race, you go out there and celebrate, because you are one of the lucky ones. Because this race, there are so many people, some people can't afford to get here, when you look at it on a global scale, but there's 5 million runners tuning in tomorrow following this race, whether it's, electronically or on TV or however they can do it. And they wish they were wearing a bib number and running this race. So
the other vision that you guys had at Runner's World was when Tim Murphy came up with the idea of the Rock and Roll Marathon.
Oh, man.
98. And all of a sudden, running, which when you and I got involved with this stuff, was 98% men and 2 women who were lost and found their way to a starting line. And now all of a sudden the thing is say 60, 70% women.
Oh, my God.
And that was because of Rock and Roll Marathon. And
Rock and Roll played a big role.
You
know, in the beginning, Catherine Switzer, Joan Benoit, you could go on and on, Bobby Gibb. They all played Oprah Winfrey.
Yes.
All played a role in getting women involved. But Tim Murphy got women involved in competing in races at a high level. When the Rock and Roll Series took off, there's no doubt about it. That was one of those blips that we would see, percentage of women in our sport. Of course, Catherine Switzer, Bobby Gibb in the old days, and then Joan Samuelson winning that Olympic gold medal. That was a big.
That was huge.
That was a huge blip in women's running, and then current. Desi Linden and Shalane Flanagan and Molly Huddle and these women out here they are killing it. And they're inspiring all the youth out there. But what I know, someone like a Shalane and Desi, what they don't realize is what they do for the average person runner that is literally just, running 10 miles a week, 15 miles a week. They think the world of these people.
Absolutely.
Because Desi and Shalane, when they're at that level, their friends are all the elite runners. And that's who they know personally. Sure. And then they try to pass the torch and inspire them. Of course, Desi still has the torch, and I think Shalane's could still have the torch, but they know they want to pass it on. They want to see these young women coming in
they want
to come in at the highest level and win the Boston Marathon and win New York. But I meet these people that are, they call themselves the back of the pack. I never use that word. I call them runners. Yeah. But they're they finish towards the end of the race. And they look at Shalane and Desi, and these women are just motivated to just do the best they can.
Right.
by someone like Shalane or Desi. And I don't know if they ever really get to see that. I get to see it because I speak to more of those kind of groups than, those guys connect with a lot of the elite runners. So but they inspire, and that's what I love about our sport. Pass it on, that inspiration.
So 2014,
yep.
We're here in Boston, and there was a party the night before, and I think you spoke and said something like, this marathon, the year after the bombings, is the most important marathon in the history of American running.
I absolutely did say that, yeah.
And
I believe that. Yeah.
And the fact that Meb won it.
Yeah.
But I remember Dave McGilvery got up after you spoke, and he's like, hey, thanks, Bart, no pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
No
That's
pressure.
exactly right.
He said no pressure, right?
Yeah.
I was dying. But you were spot on.
He looked at me. Yeah, he gave me that look.
On. It took running from a niche sport, even though it's hard to call something a niche sport when you have 50, 60,000 people doing stuff.
Yeah.
But it still was not a sport where people paid attention to it on the front page of paper until the bombings. Now, all of a sudden, President Obama's reacting to Matt winning, and it changed everything.
Did change, and 2013, I wish I would have never witnessed the things I witnessed that day, and I wish I'd never, this stuff never happened, but it did.
Because that's not why we go to
that's
this
not
stuff.
what we're about or why we do this, but it did happen. But 2014 was our way of taking our sport back and taking this race back to what it used to be, and this city wanted to do it, and they went out and did it. But you needed the 30,000 plus runners to go out there
and say, I want to be back.
Yeah. And
not be intimidated.
Yeah.
Not be scared.
And they did it. Runners came out and they supported this town, this race, and it was incredible. I got one story that still shakes me up to this.
Yeah.
Oh, I got many stories that shake me up, but the one I'll never forget, 2014. There was a gentleman, there was a whole group of them. They got stopped right over here at 25 miles.
Yep.
And they didn't know what was happening, but they were told to stop, and then they were told the race is over and they're done. And runner instinct, this guy hits his watch. It's his chrono, his stopwatch, because he was stopped. So he does that, and he doesn't know that there was a bombing, doesn't know anything. But they stopped him, so he just instinct, he hits his watch. So then they do find, as they're stopped there, they find out the race really is over and bad stuff happened, and go to your hotel, you can't continue this direction and all that stuff. So 2014, this guy comes up to me and they said, hey, we want you to run with our group. We're going to go back to where we were stopped, and we're going to finish our Boston Marathon literally a year later.
Right.
And I said, I'll be with you, man. I'll come along and run with you guys. I'll take pictures. It's a cool story. I want to talk to everybody. So we go out to that point, and we're going to run this last mile, and they're going to finish their 2013 Boston Marathon. And this older guy looks right at me, and he's visibly shaking. And tears. He got the whole thing going. He is really emotional. And he says to me, Bart, I don't have really good vision. You got to start my watch for me. I stopped it last year when they stopped us here.
Oh my God!
And my time is right there. And when you hit it, it'll start. And when I get to the finish, I'm going to stop.
You hit the wrong button. You screw them up.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, dude, your vision's bad. I can't see anything without my cheaters and reading glasses. Hence the right up here.
Yeah, I know.
And I said, oh my God. So I said, okay, you promised me this is the right button to press. I promise you. He said,
you cleared it.
Yeah. So I did press the right button. His watch started, and then we started running, and then he got to that finish and stopped it, and the guy broke down. Oh, it was tough.
Wow.
But that's what, it's what it meant to these people.
Absolutely. That's why they came
still
back.
Considered that their 2013 Boston Marathon, and then they ran the next day, the 2014. But it was pretty emotional mile running with those guys, and all they wanted to do was have the opportunity to come back and finish what they were still running when they were stopped. I mean, they weren't done.
No,
but they really
got to complete their marathon.
They got to complete their marathon. They recorded their own time, and
love it.
It was. I feel very lucky to be part of something like that, and you live the same lifestyle by this because we immersed ourselves with the community. These things like that happen to us organically.
Yes.
I don't throw out on social media, hey, anyone that's going to finish their 2013, call me, I'll run with you. This stuff just
happens.
But
there's no business plan for that.
I always said, yeah, there's no script you can write. There's no business plan. There's no, it just happens because we immerse ourselves with the community. And I always left that message with the other people I worked with at Runner's World. I always said, look, the stories don't walk in the front door of the Runner's World office. We got to go out and find them.
Yeah.
And there are so many people out there that have a story. They don't think they have a story, but they have a story.
They have a story. Yeah, exactly.
And you did the same thing for many years with Competitor. I mean, you go out there, you really meet these
the best
stories.
Absolutely. You live them and
people,
breathe them.
you hear their story and you look at them and they go, "You've been keeping this to yourself all this time?"
This is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and they're going, "Yeah, I didn't know anyone would have interest." I'm like, you have a story. We got to tell your story.
I love it. Hey, Bart, as always, thank you for taking so much time. It's always such a pleasure to catch up.
Yeah, sorry I got here late.
Not a
Flight
problem.
Problems and all that craziness.
Never a
but
problem.
Keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate everything you do for the sport and for our community. And
thank you, brother.
Hope we can keep doing this many more years.
I hope so.
All right, Bob.
The legend, Bart Yasso, has been a guest. Hold on, everybody. We will be right back.